A few days ago, I made a video about Canada's new travel ban and why I think it's a terrible idea. And the response to that video wasn't great. This video is childish and misrepresents the facts. Grow up and stop whining. People who traveled during the pandemic aren't team players. Another one, have subscribed to your channel for 2 years. I'm now unsubscribed. This video is an exercise in spin and misinformation. If you're taking lessons from Tucker Carlson, you're learning. I'm disgusted with this video and your attempts to defend it. You are destroying your own credibility. You are destroying your credibility. You gotta love a comment where it starts off like semi-reasonable and then it gets more and more intense as it goes on. You can just hear people's anger bubbling up as they're typing it. As can always be expected when you're touching a controversial subject. I think no matter what my opinion on something to do with COVID or something to do with lockdown, there will be some people saying, Dan, you don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. You're believing the propaganda. Left or right, it doesn't really matter anymore. Everyone seems to think everyone else is crazy. But I also made that video very quickly and without giving a lot of time to reflect on the nuances of the travel ban. So I might not have expressed myself very clearly because I was coming more of a reaction than a stop and reflect and then speak about it. And for that, I do apologize. I try to make thoughtful content that you guys can get value out of. And sometimes I miss the mark. Sometimes I feel an emotion and I want to talk about something that matters to me. But that time I should have planned a little bit more. Because when I rewatched that video, I realized I didn't even make the main point I wanted to make. I didn't fully explain what I don't like about this travel ban. And it's something that is larger than just Canada. This is something that speaks to every travel ban we're seeing right now. And the whole idea, the idea behind the travel bans, which is that tourism is the problem and travel needs to stop because this is a pandemic and it's not the time for travel. The main point I want to make today is that I understand this animosity and this negative feedback when I'm saying that this travel ban is bad. Because, most of us are sitting at home, we're struggling through this lockdown, we're struggling physically, we're struggling mentally, and we don't like the idea that other people are out there traveling. Because when we think about people traveling, we think, they're just out there having fun at the beach and they're not taking it serious, they're not wearing their mask, they're spreading the virus, and they are the problem. These are the, what's the expression, COVIDiots? Yeah, these are the COVIDiots who are keeping us in here for so long. I understand it. Remember, I wasn't traveling in March or April of 2020. Back before this was like a global pandemic, I think it was a very irresponsible thing to be traveling at the beginning because not every country had the virus. It was only certain places where it was really bad. So I wouldn't even think about traveling at that time. But now, a year later, we live in a different world. The risk is everywhere. So everywhere needs to decide how we exist in this new normal. I hate that expression, don't you? New normal. Ugh. Anyway, the point is, when most people think of travel, they think of people being irresponsible, people relaxing, people, just not taking this situation serious enough. But I'd like you to imagine a different image. Instead of imagining that irresponsible traveler, I'd like you to imagine someone I saw in Puerto Vallarta the first time I visited. And it's a guy selling fruit by the beach. He's got a big sun hat, he's got a big basket full of fruit, and he's walking up to tourists and he's offering them this fruit for sale. And he's doing that all day long. And if he sells some mango or some papaya or whatever, do they even have papaya in Mexico? Yeah, I think they do. Whatever he sells, he might make like 10 pesos. That might be his profit. He sells it for 30 and he gets to keep 10. And if he does that 7 or 8 times, or 12 or 15 times, well then he's got enough money for the day. And if he doesn't sell that mango and that papaya, he doesn't eat. His kids don't eat. His wife doesn't eat. They don't have food for the day because that's their job. And when they lose the tourism and they lose the tourists to sell the fruit to, countries like Mexico and other places like Jamaica, and Cuba, their government, they're not feeding them. The people who have lost their jobs because of this, they don't get financial support the way we're used to in places like Canada. They're screwed. That's the reality. Their job is gone, they've lost their income, and they're screwed. And that goes for the people selling fruit by the beach, that goes for the people selling tours, the drivers, the hotels, the hostels, everyone, the travel agents, everyone at every level involved with tourism, the tourism boards themselves, the airlines, of course. How many airlines will even be around after this? I mean, we're already seeing bankruptcies, and by some estimates, most of them will be bankrupt by the end of this. And the ones that are hanging on now, they're hanging on with very limited support. They're not getting any sympathy from anyone. They are seen as being part of the problem. They're being blamed for what's happening despite the fact that they're taking extreme sanitary measures, When I was traveling to Mexico, I'll tell you something funny. Well, it's not funny, but I'll tell you something interesting. To travel home from Mexico to Canada right now, you would need a negative COVID test within 3 days of flying. So before you get to the airport in Mexico, you get a negative test. And then once you're in the airport, you get temperature checked about 10 times. Everywhere you go, they're checking your temperature. You need to wear protective equipment. You need a mask. If you don't have a good enough mask, they're going to give you one at the airport. But lots of people I saw had the really professional N95 masks and even the face shields and gloves. I had never seen so many people wearing protective gear as in the airport. So that's the situation in the airport. The situation that everyone thinks is spreading the virus is by far the most protected place I've seen all year. Whereas in the shopping mall, take a trip to the shopping mall and look around with honest eyes and see what you see. You're going to see groups of friends hanging out together, socializing, because it's the only place they have left to socialize. You're going to see huge crowds of people. You're going to see no testing. You're going to see no one quarantining when they get home, before or after. Everyone's just coming from their own directions and then going off. No tests. No contact tracing. And yet travel is the problem. And I believe travel is seen as the problem not because of any real numbers behind it, but because of that perception that travelers are irresponsible. And maybe some of them are. Maybe there are some people on Instagram partying at Cancun and stuff who are kind of ruining it for all of us by being irresponsible and not taking it serious. Maybe that perception has destroyed the image of travelers right now. But I just keep thinking of that guy on the beach selling that fruit and every other person who he represents who's out of a job. I mean, even myself, I've essentially lost my job. I've lost 80 to 90% of my income over the past year. And to be honest, I'll just be very frank with you guys. I'll probably have to change careers. I don't see a future in travel vlogging at the moment. But I also believe that we need to fight for the world that we want to see. And just like restaurant owners need to fight for the right to be open and to serve people in a safe way just to keep their businesses alive, people in tourism, we need to fight for that too. Because these new restrictions that we're seeing in Canada and these new restrictions we're seeing lots of places, I don't believe they are justified. And I think they are just stabbing a dagger into the heart of an industry that was barely alive. And it's going to be the death of the travel industry as we know it. So I'm sad by that. And as a traveler and as as a travel channel, I can't hide that fact. I can't just share happy videos and pretend everything's normal. I'm not built like that. I always treated YouTube like I'm just talking to my friends. And if I was talking to my friend right now, I'd be saying, you know what, man, I'm not doing okay. I'm not happy about this situation. And when I'm not happy about something, I speak up. So I know the politically correct thing to do is just to smile and say, everything's good. I trust the government. They're doing a great job. But with this, I don't think they are. We live in a world that is not allowing people to freely express their opinions. We live in a world that by speaking to other people, I know that privately there are a lot of people in the travel industry who are furious about what's happening, but they're afraid to speak up because they might lose the respect of some of their audience, or they might lose potential partnerships because a company doesn't want to deal with someone who's opinionated and might alienate some of the audience. Like everyone just keeps quiet. Everyone just watches the future they've been building disappear and watches the world change in these terrible ways. And everyone just stays quiet. No one wants to speak up. No one wants to say, maybe we've gone too far. Maybe telling a Canadian who just stayed in another country, who just took a trip to Mexico and now they need to come back, telling them that you and your wife need to pay $2,000 each to return to your own country with no notice. Surprise, you didn't know this last week. Now we're telling you need to pay $2,000 each and quarantine in a hotel with a bunch of strangers instead of going to your own house where you already had a plan set out to stay safe in your own property. People just say they shouldn't have been traveling. They're irresponsible. Whereas in reality, when I went to the airport, I saw more people with N95 masks, which are the very protective masks, and the face shields. I saw a lot of face shields. I saw people better protected in the airport than anywhere else over the past year. So I think this narrative, this idea that people traveling are irresponsible and reckless, I think it's wrong. I know it's wrong because I've seen that with my own eyes. And 5 years from now, if there's no travel industry to speak of, I want to be on record saying that I don't agree. I think this is wrong. And I think the people who are speaking up loudest against this are part of the problem. I think the people who are judging other people for traveling right now without even knowing the reason they're traveling, or without even knowing anything about their quarantine plan or the safety measures they might have taken, the people who are just leaving comments saying, you are so irresponsible. How can you treat other people's lives this way? I think you're part of the problem. And I think everyone needs to relax a bit, stop judging people for situations you don't know about, and we're going to make it through this. We're going to make it through this. All right. Boy, this one should get some angry comments.